All right, thank you very much for joining me again. This is Gulpane back with a quick video. And today I'm going to look at a little question that I was wondering if anyone wants to answer it for me in the comments section, or alternatively to do a video response yourself. So what's a better game, Silent Hill or Resident Evil? Now you could look at the series and say like Silent Hill or Resident Evil, what's a better series? Like Resident Evil seems to be far more successful than Silent Hill. I think the games are better as well in the series. But if you're looking at the very first Silent Hill versus the very first Resident Evil, which game is actually better? So there's a number of ways you can look at it. Graphically, Resident Evil sort of has the still backgrounds, the pre-rendered backgrounds, and then basically the 3D polygon characters going around the backgrounds, but it's very creatively done and it's very cinematic as well, the way it's presented. The very first cinema at the start is like a live action, which is really cool. I love that starting bit to Resident Evil 1. And then the rest of the cinemas are sort of, a lot of them use the in-game graphics to kind of portray the story. And then there's some CG stuff as well with the hunt. Like it's not very good, but the hunter coming towards springs to mind as well when you first meet the hunter, or the first zombie that you meet. But most of the story is told with the in-game graphics, which is quite nice actually. And then Silent Hill, then I think Silent Hill is probably better, although the characters look less detailed than those in Resident Evil. It's a tough choice, but with Silent Hill the backgrounds are fully 3D, and you can move around in a kind of like in a fully 3D area. Sometimes in Silent Hill the backgrounds become static, and it kind of becomes more cinematic. So you can see like the kind of influence of Resident Evil and Silent Hill with the different camera angles and all that. But then they kind of figured out how to do the fully 3D environment and sort of went with that. So it kind of seems like they took some inspiration from the way Resident Evil was presented, but then kind of went a step further and made it a fully 3D environment. The sound is really good in both of them. Silent Hill may be a bit better actually. Just for the opening music to it is excellent. Resident Evil's music is it's more like just kind of like stock horror movie music, which is probably similar in Silent Hill as well. But Silent Hill seems to be, the soundtrack seems to be a little more memorable. I mean, everyone remembers the save room music in Resident Evil, but like, is there any other music, you can remember? I don't know. Maybe dun dun when you're in like a situation where the zombies are coming to get you. But yeah, so maybe Silent Hill's sound is a little bit better as well. Again, it has the advantage of coming out a little bit later. The story wise then, so story is kind of, I think, where Resident Evil kind of is better. Resident Evil is more of a kind of a B movie with like horror elements, but it's not really a horror game if you think about it. You're in control of the character, and like ammo is scarce and all that, and it's difficult to control, but I think you're still kind of in control of the game. You could probably say like you're not as much in control of Silent Hill, because I don't think the controls are as good. I know it's tank controls versus other tank controls, or weird tank controls like versus other weird tank controls, but I think you're more in control in Resident Evil. Maybe it's because like it's a smaller area, so the enemies don't have a lot of like different places to come at you from, because it's in like the static backgrounds. Plus you kind of know when they're going to come, and you know when the dogs are going to jump in, you know how many zombies are in each room. Silent Hill you have a little less control, because you're kind of running around the streets or the different places, and it seems to be that the enemies are kind of you don't know when they're going to come. A lot of times, sometimes you do, obviously, because they're in the same location, but they seem to spring up in you a lot more in Silent Hill unexpectedly. So story wise, yeah, I think Resident Evil is better. I much prefer the B movie style Resident Evil went for, even the crappy voice acting, than the sort of like like real horror that Silent Hill is going for. Silent Hill is actually trying to scare you. Like it's showing you images of like like a guy crucified on the railing, and this kind of school, and the little enemies with the knives and all that. I think they were children originally, and then they changed them to bunnies or changed them to just little shapes. Yeah, the enemies like in Silent Hill are kind of, they're more like, I don't know, like they don't really look like real things, whereas the ones in Resident Evil, they all look like people because they're zombies, or they look like snakes, or the hunters as well kind of look like giant gorillas. I think that's what they originally were, or maybe they weren't, I don't know. But yeah, I think the story and then the story in Silent Hill is not a happy story, I don't think, because a lot of the characters you can't save them, like Lisa Garland, the doctor, who's not really a good character, but you still can't save them, and I don't know, it's for me, I favor the B movie over the, I don't know, like the psychological horror or whatever of Silent Hill. I much prefer the kind of comedy horror as opposed to just the regular horror, if that makes sense. Still like both though. So having said that then, yeah, so summing up then, for me, it's difficult to know for me because I played Silent Hill. That was the first Silent Hill game I played. I can play it from start to finish, no problem, don't even need to check the map. The last time I played it, actually, I went from start to finish, didn't check the map, and then got killed on the last boss, and then never played it again. Resident Evil 1, I don't have any kind of nostalgia for it because I didn't play it when it was out first. I played Resident Evil 2, and then went back and played Resident Evil 1, and after doing that, Resident Evil 1 is nothing compared to Resident Evil 2, in my opinion anyway. So I'm still going to say Resident Evil 1 is the better game than Silent Hill because it seems to have more replay value, and I don't know, just something about Silent Hill I just don't like. I don't like the second one. I don't really like the stories in it because the stories, they're not happy stories, or they're not really action-packed stories. The way the stuff is presented as well, it's not really presented as it's real. It's more like it's a dream or a fever dream or something like that. Whereas Resident Evil is presented as it's real. So I don't know. Anyway, those are my thoughts on a quick conversation about what's a better game, Resident Evil or Silent Hill. So if you've got any thoughts, jot your thoughts in the comments below. Alternatively, make a video response yourself, and don't forget to put something in the comments so that I know you've made one. Otherwise I'll probably never see it. So thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you in the next video. Adios.